Hello and welcome back to Strangers and Pilgrims. We are now at Genesis chapter 18, and Genesis chapter 18 has a very interesting and beautiful story. It says, "And the Lord appeared to him," to Abraham again, "by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth, and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant." Here in this story we see a lot of beautiful things about our father Abraham. First, we see that he was sitting at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. Why would someone do that? Maybe this was a custom for some people to sit at the door of the tent during the heat of the day because it's hot inside, but also because he's watching to see if he can help anyone, if there is anyone that he can offer help to, any stranger or anyone who is traveling, and he can offer any help to him. So this is exactly what happened. He looked, and there were 3 people coming, but here we see how humble Abraham was. You know, Abraham, who is about 100 years old, who is respected by everyone, who is very wealthy, he's running at this age to greet 3 people that he doesn't know. And he ran to them and bowed himself to the earth and bowed down before them as a sign of respect to them. Of course, this was a habit in the Old Testament, like to bow to people as a sign of respect. That doesn't mean that he's worshipping someone other than God, but it was again a sign of respect to the people. And then he said, "Let little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on. Since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." We're going to see that these 3 were not ordinary people. It was God himself and 2 angels. And when Abraham offered to host them and to offer them water and food, they said, "Do as you have said," which means that they were pleased with what he's offering. God is pleased when he sees someone that is offering love to someone else. Abraham was offering his love, and again, he wasn't that young to run and like to offer to make food. He was about 100 years old. But because he had true love in his heart, he was thinking about those people, not about himself. He said, "Let me do something that may refresh you, that is going to give you rest, to give you refreshment and joy." And this is a sign of a man of God. This is a true sign of a man of God. The one who does not think about himself, but think about others. He is not thinking that he wants to relax and have an easy day and just like lay down because of his old age, but he is thinking about how can I do something to someone else that's going to make his day better. And this is something that's amazing in the life of Abraham. And that's why it was pleasing to them, and they said, "Do as you have said." And we see that he kept running after that. He kept like hurrying up. And Abraham went quickly into the tent. Again, notice his old age, but he is doing everything in haste. Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, "Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." He's not just hurrying up, but he is also rushing his wife, who is 90 years old, to make food for those strangers. And he told them, I'm going to bring a morsel, which is like, you know, a little piece of bread, but what he's actually going to make for them is like a lot of bread. He may make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Here we see also how generous Abraham was. For 3 people, he's going to slaughter a whole calf. And he chose the best one that's really good. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. And then him and Sarah and the servants, they made the food, he presented the food to them, and he was waiting on them. He was waiting on them while they ate, as if he is a servant. And here we see, you know, when someone has love in his heart, he acts like this. He acts like a servant who is a servant, or who is someone who serves God? Someone who has love in his heart towards people, and of course towards God first. But this service is not a job. It's not something that he's doing because he's obligated to. He wasn't obligated to do any of these things. Could have just like stayed in his tent all day, and no one would blame him for not doing otherwise. But because of the overflowing love in his heart, he is waiting for someone to share this love with. This is something again that's amazing. We see his love, we see his humility, we see his hospitality. Saint Ambrose said, hospitality is a good thing, and it has its recompense. For first of all, the recompense of human gratitude, and then more importantly, the divine reward. So it makes people happy and grateful, and also someone who is hospitable gets a divine reward. In this earthly abode, we are all guests. Here we have only a temporary dwelling place. So we are all strangers. And when we are hospitable to strangers, that's a good thing. Also, Saint Ephrem the Syrian, he said, Abraham's love for strangers was shown in receiving the 3 men. His love for strangers was thus proved by the haste with which he ran to meet those strangers. Therefore the Lord now appeared to Abraham clearly in one of the 3. Because of his love and humility and offering this, being hospitable to those people, he was actually worthy of seeing God himself, because the one that's going to stay and talk with him was the Lord. Sometimes we ask ourselves, how can we do the same thing now in this time? Maybe it's not easy to do the same thing as Abraham was doing, because back in the days that was the custom for people to host people in their houses. Maybe now it's not feasible all the time. But I can be like, St. Ambrose said, like, we are all strangers here. I can offer love to someone who doesn't have friends. I can check on someone who is lonely and doesn't have a family, for example. By this, I am still being hospitable, and I'm offering love and kindness to someone who is a stranger. All of us are strangers in some way, and to offer love to one another, to care about one another, to put someone before me, like Abraham did, and to put his interest before my interest, that is being hospitable to a stranger. So yes, we may not be doing it the same way it was done by our father Abraham, but there are definitely many ways that we can do or practice this virtue of being hospitable to strangers. So this is a long story. This was part of it. We'll continue the next part next time. Thank you, and see you again.